You know, I've come to realize that the goal of life is to simply be. We live in a world where your value is determined on how you perform, what problems you solve, and who you become. Now, this is important to progress the world. And we have to have that system in order to advance civilization and make humanity better. But we do it the wrong way. We do it in a way where we promise the reward of money, luxury, and freedom. But I think something like freedom on an earth like this, where we've been given lakes, trees, civilizations, ecosystems, animals, and food to explore, then our performance should not lead to the experience of the nature and the beauty that is already defaulted to us. I'm tired of performing and trying to put on a mask in order to appease my fellow mankind. And I think everyone's now realizing this, they're waking up from it. Because it's like, if I'm going to do something and alter myself and become someone that is different, then I want to make sure that I get rewarded fairly and I get compensated properly. In a world like today, a lot of us, it's not even just about money, but it's like we're not rewarded the way that we think we are. Perhaps we say, oh, we want luxury. And so say we open a business that grants us all this luxury. And then some of us become dissatisfied because we actually never understood that the meaning was to enjoy the process. And it was to actually detach from the materialism and to constantly give. My point is, we deep down intuitively know that the goal is to simply be. That's it. Because everything in life, it always has a yin and a yang, as we know. There's always a contrast. There's always an oxymoron. There's good, there's evil, there's hot, there's cold. But I think most entities in this world, whether it's money, whether it's people, whether it's life itself, it's actually a neutral entity. And depending on which way the pendulum swings, that determines how much force, which forces, whether good, bad, positive, negative, it determines on how that neutral entity is being affected. So as we know with money is a neutral entity. You can do good things to have it, you can do bad things to have it. And it can be used for good, it could be used for bad. But when you actually look at the deeper meaning behind this philosophy, if it even is a philosophy. Like when you look at life, as I said, the reason why life is unfair and it's cruel, it's because it just doesn't care. It doesn't care for you. It's a neutral entity. It exists, and there's a lot of good and there's a lot of bad. But the point is that it doesn't cater to anything. It's just a neutral thing. But I think that's what being represents. Because life just is. Because it doesn't have any associations or attachments along with it, it's not a specific identity. It just is. And I think that we as humans, of course, we have to have some sort of ego in order to accomplish certain things in life and in order to view ourselves a certain way. However, I think that by us learning how to be, it actually prompts us to be more content and more grounded and appreciate our presence more. Because in this world nowadays, when you're a guy, you should be making sure everyone else has money for you. You can't be relaxing. You can't enjoy your own presence. If you haven't earned the right to be somebody, then you don't have the right to love yourself. I learned that lesson the hard way. And for women, perhaps their struggles and their pressures go with impressing men, or, just trying to appeal to the female beauty standard. There's a lot of different things, but by being, it's that we realize inherently deep down that we're just consciousness in the cosmos, and the fact that we are alive at this specific time is a gift in of itself. Now, I want to share a quick story because when I was 21 years old, I went to the mountains in Canada in this small town called Jasper. It was probably the best day of my life. And this was just after I overcame a lot of personal struggles, like enduring a heart attack in the same town and returning 1 year later, becoming homeless, escaping from an abusive situation back home. And I actually managed to turn my life around for the better. And then what I did is I hiked up on this really tall mountain in the town. Like, it's one of the most beautiful towns in the world, this mountain town. You know, the lakes, it's like the Alps, but they call it the Rockies in Canada. Anyways, I took some LSD that my friend gave me the week before, and I hiked up this mountain with a dirt bike. Not a motor dirt bike, but a mountain bike. And when I reached the top, when I reached the pinnacle, I pulled out a cigar and I smoked on the top of that mountain, and I was overlooking one of the most spectacular scenes of nature that one can ever lay their eyes upon. And so I wanted to open my channels and just ask whatever's out there, what's the answer? I didn't want to have any preconceived ideas. I just was a complete blank slate, and I wanted to just feel it. What was that feeling that arose? And it was just be. So that's where I learned it from, because being, we might get a little bit confused because it's like, well, what if being means I want to do this or I want to do that? It's not necessarily about doing, because you have to look at the deeper roots behind it. You know, if you're a doctor, for example, you may not be a doctor forever. That's not your identity. That's not who you are. You're actually a human being, and you're just practicing, you're just doing medical practices. That's your current identity. It could change, it could stay the same, but it's not necessarily being, it's not who you are, it's just what you do. And I realized that if there's something that you truly want to do, you feel like it's your calling on a very spiritual or on a very deep level, then that's being. You're fulfilling your obligation in this world. You're fulfilling your obligation to complete what you're ordained to do. You're on the path of alignment. That's what it means. Now, being is also letting go, relinquishing control. Human beings, we have a hard time doing that. We always attach to something. But I talked with this wise Indian man when I went to India, and he's one of the most beautiful souls I ever met, one of the most beautiful people ever. He doesn't have much money, but I could feel that there was something in him, and I wanted to really learn his perspective more. And he told me, there's only two things that you take with you to the afterlife: good wishes and bad wishes. Nothing else. And that was a really profound thing to say, because it's true. Now, relinquishing control and detaching is so freeing, because by being, you're simply going with the flow in life, and whatever's supposed to stay is supposed to stay, and whatever's supposed to go, it's supposed to go. Life is a wave. You ride it. You don't try to fight it. It's not a war. It's flow. And I'm not trying to sound like some hippie. I know I do, okay? I know it sounds cliche, it sounds corny, but it's very true. When you try to have your eyes on a specific goal, like say a savings target, you want to reach $20,000 in your bank account by the end of this year. So maybe you take a job that's lackluster, it's hard, but on paper it pays a lot. Well, you may not understand that an alternative perspective may actually be more ideal for you, because perhaps if this job was really grinding down your soul, but you wanted to hit that target, you can actually step away from it, have a clear-headed perspective, change your strategy, and maybe you find another job that pays a bit less, but it's easier to do, and maybe it takes 1 month longer, but you still complete it either way. Or actually, maybe you do get that savings goal at the same time or even before, but since you lightened the burden off of you and you chose to think more rational by stepping away, by letting go, Perhaps you discovered another hustle or another way of making money that you would have never actually thought was possible, and then you perhaps make more. So that's what I mean. And I think by being, you are actually doing what you're supposed to do. So that's what I think being is. And the thing that was very interesting in that experience in nature, I think that's why humans, we adore nature so much, because nature is us. And it's also who we want to be. When you look at nature, it is so formidable. It's so strong. When you look at the presence of a large tree or a large mountain, when I was looking at those mountains, you could feel the strength. Nothing can move it. But also it's delicate because natural disasters occur, floodings, fires, avalanches, but it also clears way for new life to emerge. And when nature wipes out a village, when it kills a lot of people, like in a tsunami or a volcano, notice how we never get angry at Mother Nature. We always say, Mother Nature is doing its thing, because it's being. But it's also simultaneously so soft and so welcoming. And it's almost like returning to your natural state, to your default state. Because the first humans, back in the day, nature was guiding us. It was our way to survive. It gave us everything we needed. The world we live in now is simply just more convenience. It's not necessarily more necessity, but it is more convenience. But when you climb a mountain like what I did, there's rocks that'll help you climb up. You can move it out of the way. You can manipulate your surroundings for it to work in your favor. So by being, not only are you being within your presence and you're defaulting to your natural state, your oneness, but you can also manipulate the world around you by moving stuff, by putting your spark out there, by completely smiting your sword into the ground. And you actually carve a way for yourself. You make things happen for you. That's because you also have choices. And everything is a choice. But these choices, when it comes from a place of being, it's going to serve you and the world around you to the fullest.